Welcome to Miles Ahead, the Canadian Points podcast brought to you by frugalflyer.ca, where we talk about all things miles and points, a hobby that allows us to travel all over the world in style and on a budget. In episode 2 today, we're joined by myself, Reed, Josh, and Danny, all returning from episode 1. And we also have a new voice, Quentin. So welcome, Quentin. On this episode of the podcast, we're going to continue our discussion of the basics of miles and points that we started in the last episode. And so the majority of this episode is going to be dedicated to discussing how to earn points and how to earn lots of points. So just before we get into that main topic, we're going to have a quick roundtable where we all mention our favorite credit card in our wallet right now and why that is. So Josh, I'll let you start us off. What's your favorite credit card today?
Yeah, my current favorite card in my wallet tends to fluctuate depending on what I have going on in my personal life. Right now, it's actually the Scotiabank Gold American Express card. I find a ton of value in this card simply because Scene rewards are super flexible as to how they can be redeemed. While they're not a transferable points currency, such as Amex membership rewards, Scene Plus rewards can be redeemed for things such as groceries, alcohol, and book anyway travel purchases, which is a great way to utilize them for kind of your abnormal purchases when it comes to travel, such as, Disneyland tickets, for example. My significant other is doing a trip with her sisters to Disneyland in the fall, and we're going to be using Scene Plus rewards to cash out a bunch of points to cover the majority of the cost of those tickets. There's a few other things I really like about the card. It has a phenomenal spending category with 5 times on grocery and restaurant spend, which is excellent. Simply put, if you have a great way to run grocery or restaurant spend, or perhaps have a bigger household that spends a lot on those categories every month, the points really do add up quick. Finally, I really, really like it for the no foreign transaction fee feature that it has. There's very few cards in Canada that offer this as a feature. What this means is if you use the card for any purchases in international currencies outside of Canadian dollars, you will receive essentially a discount of 2.5% over using another credit card, which is that foreign transaction fee. So the Scotiabank Gold American Express card is always one that I keep in my wallet when I'm traveling to the States or even internationally. The card actually just pushed an offer recently for 45,000 Scene Plus rewards points, plus first year free on spending $7,500. So it's definitely well worth checking out. Plus we have a nice little rebate tied to that through the Flyer Funds rebate program. How about you, Quentin? What's your favorite card right now?
Hey, Josh. Yeah, thanks for having me today. I'm happy to be on my first episode of Miles Ahead here. So I will take another American Express card, but I will take the one that's actually issued by American Express themselves in the American Express Cobalt card. So much like Josh was talking about the Gold American Express card from Scotiabank, the Cobalt card also offers 5 times membership rewards points on food and drink, which is probably, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but I think that is industry leading. On top of that, the Cobalt card also offers 2 times membership rewards points on gas and travel. And now that my significant other and I are living a bit further away from each other, gas is a bigger expense than it usually is. So that's going to come in handy. So I think it's my favorite card. It has been my favorite card since I started the points and miles journey in about 2019 for that 5 times membership rewards points on food and drink. And I transfer basically all of my American Express membership rewards points out to Aeroplan. Membership rewards in Canada is one of the few transferable currencies that we have. And I think I could speak on behalf of all of us here. We tend to transfer out to Aeroplan. And when we value our Aeroplan points at 2 cents per point, that means we could get upwards of over 10% back on our food and dining spending when using the Cobalt card, which is absolutely unreal. It's hard to get your mind across it, but the Cobalt card has always been an earner for me for Aeroplan points. It's kind of ironic that the best Aeroplan earning card isn't actually issued by Aeroplan, but I digress. So the Cobalt card has always had a place in my wallet, and I think it'll always have a place in my wallet. How about you, Danny? What are you using right now?
Yeah, thanks, Quentin. So I'm going to divulge from the trend here of American Express cards. And my favorite credit card in my wallet is the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite Privilege. And specifically, the Privilege version of this card is a little bit more unique, not only because it has a $599 annual fee, but it also has a ton of features that are packed into the card. So to start off with, it's got a really good base earn rate at 1.25 points for every dollar that you put on it. And I think it's also more versatile than the Amex cards because oftentimes we'll see no Amex accepted or only debit or only Visa and MasterCard transactions. So being able to use it everywhere is really important. Everywhere else, it's got decent multipliers, nothing crazy, but if it's the only card in your wallet or if it's the only thing that you have around to, let's say, pay at the pump or something like that, you'll still get a good enough return at 1.5 on gas, grocery, travel, and I think there's a few other miscellaneous things that go in there as well. Now, the features that I love, and I fly about 35 to 40 segments with Air Canada every year. I'm lucky that I not only get to maximize on the financial institution side, but I also fly a lot for my work. So I get to use these perks very, very often. Spending $5,000 will equal one status qualifying segment or 1,000 status qualifying miles. So for me, if I spend $20,000 on this card in a year through nefarious means or not, I'll earn an extra 4 SQS or 4,000 SQM. Now, if you're brand new to Aeroplan status, that might not mean anything to you, but we'll put a link in the show notes to our article that explains everything about Aeroplan status, so that starts to make a little bit more sense. For the people that do have Aeroplan status, it continues to pay dividends to hold this card. You can roll over 50 upgrades. You can roll over up to, I think, 200,000 SQM, which is just crazy that they allow that kind of rollover with the card. Now, you also get things like priority standby and priority upgrade, which is a whole topic all on its own. And then one of the best features is if you spend $25,000 in a year, you also get a companion pass that's good worldwide in economy. So if you're buying a $2,000 economy round trip ticket, that is only going to cost for the actual flight at $2,699. We also get Avis President's Club status with the card, which I've found a lot of value in. Reed, what's your favorite card right now?
So I don't know if I'd call this my favorite card, but I felt it was a card I needed to mention. And it's actually a little bit against the grain of what you guys have been talking about, in the sense that it's not really a card that benefits me in travel. But the Canadian Tire Triangle World Elite card is a card that I think would benefit almost all Canadians. And it's a card that has no welcome bonus, but a lot of benefits just for holding the card year over year. There's no annual fee on the card, so there's really no downside to holding it. And it does have a decent earning rate at Canadian Tire, as well as stores affiliated with the Triangle Rewards program. So stores like Mark's, Sport Chek, and others. But the main benefits I find from it are the roadside assistance benefit. So this is something like AMA or CAA that's provided complimentary for holding the card. I've actually made use of that benefit a few times and found the service is good. And it also comes with a oil change, complimentary oil change, $40 credit once per year. So that's another piece of value that I get every year from the card. And one more benefit is with this card, it has something really unique where you can actually do bill payments with the card like you would a regular bank account, and it earns 1% in Canadian Tire money back on those bill payments. So every year I make use of the Canadian Tire Triangle World Elite to bill pay my property tax, and I make back 1% in Canadian Tire money.
I'll just jump in right there on that last point with bill pay. If there's any students that are listening out there, myself, I'm still a student in medical school, but most Canadian universities, colleges will actually let you pay your tuition with the Canadian Tire World Elite MasterCard. That's what I just did. And you would pay it just like you would pay any bill or your tuition from your bank account instead. So it was an easy way for me to get 1% back on quite a large tuition bill that's coming up for me.
That's a good point. Anything that you can bill pay, you can use the Canadian Tire Triangle World Elite to do those bill payments, and then you earn 1% on a service that you otherwise wouldn't be able to earn back on. So we've been talking a lot about credit cards, and for the rest of the section today, we're going to be talking a lot more about credit cards. When we talk about earning points, there's a lot of different ways to earn points, but by far the most effective way to earn points in Canada is through credit cards. And there's two avenues through credit cards where you can earn points. One is what we've touched on a lot of, which is category spending. So your existing purchases that you're making every day, you can earn points on those. Most people know about that. But the other way is through something called a welcome bonus or sign-up bonus. We talked a little bit about these in episode 1, but these are kind of incentives that are offered on credit cards to acquire new customers. And the bonuses that you get from these cards are significantly higher than what most people will be able to earn from just their regular spending. So the bonuses can be upwards of 30,000, 50,000, even 100,000 or more points just for signing up. And you can often do this more than just one time as well.
I think this is the biggest shift in mindset for many people, and especially those starting out in the world of miles and points. A couple of years ago, I was chatting with a coworker who held the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite card. And I remember her mentioning she was frustrated, how it's so hard to earn enough Aeroplan points to redeem for any decent flight, frankly. And I couldn't help but think she's using the card in the intended way, but kind of missing the big picture with it, where it's, as an average Canadian, you're not spending a ton on your card every year, and it'll take years and years to accrue enough to actually fly, an international flight or a business class flight, versus she might be spending 10,000 to earn 30,000 points on the card, but you can spend 10,000 towards a welcome bonus on an Aeroplan card, and you might earn 100,000 Aeroplan points just from the bonus itself. So it's definitely a shift in mindset that you need to take into account going into this hobby. When you think about it, say you have a bunch of spend you're going to do, and you could $35,000 spending on a card that earns 1 point per dollar, and that would earn you 35,000 points. On that flip side, you could sign up for a new credit card, such as the RBC Avion Visa Infinite card, and actually get 35,000 points for making a singular purchase. That's right. It's literally that simple to do one purchase on the card. No matter how big or small, you can purchase a pack of gum or reload your Amazon balance, and you'd receive 35,000 points. It doesn't get much better than that. Of course, the examples aren't always that extreme, but it is generally much more efficient, especially from a velocity and scale standpoint, to sign up for new credit cards and always be earning new welcome bonuses versus maximizing existing spending for the average person. Of course, when we talk about applying for new cards, it's not as easy as simply opening up a new application and submitting your data. There's a lot that goes into it to understanding kind of how financial institutions approve credit cards. And so I'll toss it over to Danny to talk about some of the things that need to be taken into account before you apply.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. So I did write an article that's a lot more in-depth than what we're going to talk about here, called Credit Score is Everything That You Need to Know. But one of the first things that everybody asks me when I tell them that I've got more than 10 credit cards open is, oh my gosh, what is your credit score, and have you absolutely destroyed it? And my answer is absolutely not. So the first myth that I think we need to dispel is that having multiple credit cards that are completely paid off at all times will actually increase your credit score rather than decrease your credit score. So just really quick to touch on what actually makes your credit score. The most important things are your payment history, being that you've at least paid the minimum payment on time every single month. Your credit utilization, which is a fancy way to say how much of your credit limit are you using. So if you've got a $1,000 credit limit and you're using $900 all the time, your credit score is going to be lower than somebody who's got a $500 credit limit and uses $50 all the time. So understanding what makes your credit score increase and decrease is not only good financial health, but also important to understanding why we sign up for more than 2 or 3 credit cards in a year, and some people even more than that in a year once you really start getting going and you turn left on an airplane for the first time, have your first sip of Krug champagne, which I did not know anything about before I started flying business class. So you've really got to have a good understanding on your credit score. So if you're interested in this, highly recommend you go to the show notes, you read our credit score article to get a much more in-depth look into that. Also, talking about holding multiple credit cards, I did touch on that a little bit. Having more credit in your name is generally a good thing because you're not going to be using $70,000 of credit every single month. So if you're only spending $1,000, $2,000 every month, your utilization is extremely low. And then finally, there's also the mysterious world of business credit cards. I did not think that I had a business when I first started reading about how to maximize my spending and maximize my miles and points. Once you understand what the banks mean by a business credit card, you can apply as a sole proprietor. So if you've helped your neighbor with their gardening on the weekends or house sit for your friend and they give you $20, you're a business owner in the eyes of the bank. When you apply for a business credit card, you're not actually using your business credit. What you're doing is attaching your personal social insurance number to an account that has the word business on it. So there's nothing you need to be concerned about with filing taxes with the CRA. You can apply for every single business branded credit cards as a sole proprietor.
I definitely think this idea with credit scores and, what are the implications of signing up for new cards is one of the biggest barriers to people getting into this hobby. So I think that's something that hopefully we've provided enough information to convince people that it's worth doing and that the implications are pretty overstated. Another big barrier, I would say, is it can be tough to understand the value that a given point has. When you get these advertisements that say earn 20,000 points on a new credit card, no one really knows what that means. What are those points worth? What can they use them for? How can they use them? And so it's hard to kind of be convinced in that sense. That's where one of the biggest skills in this hobby is learning what makes a good welcome bonus. Quentin has a great article that he wrote on this, on some different components of a credit card offer. So maybe Quentin can speak to some of those.
Yeah, for sure. I wrote this article actually thinking about how would I explain to my grandmother in Sault Ste. Marie, how would she be able to look at a bank page and understand what she's going to get offered when she signs up for a credit card. So oftentimes when you're looking at, let's say, the CIBC Aeroplan Visa Infinite card, it'll show up and say something along the lines of sign up today or join today and get up to $1,200 value in your first year. And I don't blame you if you sit there and say, what does that even mean? As opposed to American Express, who often says earn up to 15,000 membership rewards points. How do I get there? So I think, again, we'll link it down into the description where you can read this article. But the first thing what we need to look at when we're earning this welcome bonus is what the currency we're earning with is. So even if it says join now and get up to $1,200 value in your first year for, let's say, again, the CIBC Aeroplan card, make sure you understand that it's not actually $1,200 you're getting. It is X number of Aeroplan points. And it's up to you to decide how much those Aeroplan points are worth. So I think that's the first thing that we recommend you looking at, which is make sure you understand what currency you're earning. But the next thing to understand is how do you actually earn those rewards? It's not that you sign up and you immediately get them. Oftentimes, where there's a welcome bonus listed for a certain credit card when you sign up for it, there is a minimum spending requirement that's required. You need to spend X number of dollars within a certain period of time. in order to unlock that bonus. Think of it as like a spending challenge, or on a video game, you have to reach a certain checkpoint to gain your reward. That's what this minimum spend requirement is. So I'll default back to the CIBC Aeroplan card, Aeroplan Visa Infinite card, where part of the bonus is unlocked when you make just one purchase. So that could be a first pack of gum at your local convenience store or filling up your tank. That one purchase will unlock a big chunk of those points. The next chunk of those points are actually then going to be unlocked by you spending a certain amount of money in a period of time. So those details, when you're, again, looking to sign up for a card, you need to understand what checkpoints you need to make or what spending you need to hit in order to unlock the welcome bonus. And the last thing I kind of tell people when they're looking to sign up for a new card is what is actually the net value you're going to get back from this. So what we call the net value is the bonus points that we're going to get from signing up for the card, plus the benefits and perks that are accompanied by the card just by holding it, plus a cashback rebate if applicable. And we can get a little bit into that about the Flyer Funds program. And then subtract the annual fee from that. And that's going to give us this number that we give to signing up for a card. So let's say we have a sign-up bonus of 55,000 Avion points from RBC, and we're rating that at 1.9 cents per point. That's going to give us a cash value of $1,045. For the benefits and perks that are come with this card, I personally would value them maybe about $50 because it comes with pretty strong travel insurance, and then subtract the $120 annual fee. So if you were following along with that, by just signing up and getting the welcome bonus for this card, we actually can net over $1,000 in value. So doing these calculations for yourself when you're looking at a welcome bonus is extremely important. Yeah, I think, and again, check out our article on frugalflyer.ca about all the components of a welcome bonus. But I think that kind of gives us a high level overview of how to decipher a welcome bonus, how to see if it makes sense for us, and then whether ultimately we want to sign up for it.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll include Quentin's article in the show notes. Something that always comes to mind, and I've been in the miles and points hobby for a little while now, is people often see an attractive welcome bonus and they're almost blinded by the number of points that are on offer. So they sign up for the card. And then the next question I hear is, how am I going to spend $10,000 in 3 months to get this bonus? So while the bonus can be really good, the second component that Quentin talked about, that minimum spending requirement or MSR, is equally as important, as you need to have a plan as to how you can meet that.
So a great way that I have discovered about meeting the minimum spend requirements is almost like investing my money up front in order to meet that spend requirement through gift cards. So one of the things that I'll do if I have a large spending or any minimum spending requirement, but I can't, let's say, spend $3,000 in a month, is to go to my local grocery store, my favorite stores such as Lululemon or the LCBO, and buy $100, $200, $300 worth of gift cards and just hold on to those gift cards and spend them as I go. So that way I can spend a chunk of money up front, but I'm not actually spending it on anything right at that moment. I'm just investing it into these gift cards in which I'll liquidate or use for my groceries, my gas, my food, or a piece of clothing. So that's one way I think it's getting a little bit creative about how we can meet our minimum spend requirements if we're in a time crunch.
Yeah, and then building off of that, I've actually used prepaying my car insurance for the entire year to meet a minimum spend in a moment's notice. So if you start thinking about bills that you normally would pay from your bank that you might be able to pay with a credit card for no additional fee, car insurance is often one that people overlook. If you have the ability to prepay your car insurance for the whole year, maybe even $3,000 of spending that you wouldn't otherwise be able to put that you've already allocated the dollars for.
That can work with utilities as well. I know something I used to do, and it depends on your utility company, but you can often prepay a certain amount to your utilities, and then that just kind of acts as a credit towards your future bills.
Good one.
Another one we talked about actually last episode was pay power, which is a form of manufactured spending. Manufactured spending is a topic all on its own, but the idea is essentially there's ways to spend money and get that money back. So you're not actually spending the money, you're ultimately just kind of cycling money through a service. So PayPal is one example. And there's a couple of other creative ways in Canada that there's some rent payment services. So one right now is called Chexy. So if you pay rent, you can sign up for this, and then you basically pay Chexy and then they pay your rent and they allow you to use a credit card. There is a fee associated with that. So paying fees to meet spend can definitely be worth it in the context of welcome bonuses, but potentially not in the context of ongoing spend.
So really, if you're looking to get started in the world of miles and points, or you're looking for the next card that you want to sign up for, the best way to approach it is to work backwards from the redemption that you're looking to make. For example, you want to, redeem for a flight on Aeroplan, whether domestic, international, transborder. You might want to earn Aeroplan points. We talked about it a little bit earlier. You can also earn American Express membership rewards points as they transfer to Aeroplan. Similarly, if you want an aspirational hotel stay, you might want to be earning Marriott Bonvoy points, which can also be earned from those 2 co-branded Marriott Bonvoy credit cards from American Express, or transferred from Amex membership rewards as well. The best way to get going or to continue down this hobby is to always have a plan when you are signing up for the card as to what you're going to use the points for, or a liquidation method for the points, versus just aimlessly signing up for every card that looks attractive to you.
Yep. That's one of the keys to being able to know if it's worth signing up for a card is you need to know what you're using the points for, and then you can actually put a value on what those points are worth. If you know what kind of flight you're looking at booking with Aeroplan, you can look up the cash value of that flight and you can kind of know what you're going to get out of it. And it becomes easier to justify things like annual fees, which I think I would say annual fees are another barrier for people first starting out. And so I would recommend someone just starting the hobby, if you're just dipping your feet in, start with a card that doesn't have an annual fee, or even better, has a first year free or first year rebate on the annual fee. And that can make it kind of psychologically easier to jump in. So it's a pretty common question for people just starting this hobby. What should they start with? What card should they start with? Of course, if you know what kind of travel you want to do, it's an easier question to answer. It's always a personal choice. But we talked about in the last episode flexible points currencies. And I think if you're not totally sure what you want to use your points for to begin with, then a flexible points currency card is usually the best way to start. So something like the RBC Avion Visa Infinite. RBC Avion points can be transferred to British Airways Avios. They can be transferred to WestJet, as well as some other airline loyalty programs. And those can be used to book flights domestically in Canada, or in the case of British Airways Avios, there's lots of good partners that those points can be used for. So I'm going to be using British Airways in the upcoming year to travel to Portugal and Spain. So Josh, if you were starting out in miles and points all over again, what's the card that you would start out with?
Yeah, I take the avenue of what is the path of least resistance in getting started with this. I also, frankly, love the RBC Avion Visa Infinite. The fact you can earn 35,000 points from doing one purchase is absolutely unreal. There's sometimes elevated offers that include additional points for spend, but even if you don't want to do that part, the 35,000 points is great. I also find a ton of value in transferring to British Airways Avios. I'm a big fan of Qatar Airways and their Q Suites product, and that's been instrumental in giving me the ability to make those redemptions to fly around the world in style.
The card I tend to recommend to people is my favorite card that we started off the episode with, which is the American Express Cobalt card. It doesn't have the most flashy welcome bonus, It now sits around 15,000 membership rewards points, and it might fluctuate up or down from there based off of the timing in which you're listening to this episode. But for me and for most of the people in my life, and probably most of the people listening to the podcast right now, the biggest spending category we have is on groceries and dining. And the fact that you can earn 5 times points on every dollar spent on food and drinks and then transfer that out to Aeroplan makes it just an absolute workhorse of a card. And my friends and family just sign up, and a year in, they're taking a business class flight to Europe just by having this card. So without a doubt, that's the card I recommend to most people.
Yeah, I'm going to build off Quentin's point, but I am definitely an engineering brain, so I like to focus on the numbers. So when we're talking about the RBC Avion and you just sign up for the card, you don't have to spend any money and you get 35,000 points, that's a lot of points for sure. But when you really break down what the Amex Cobalt is capable of, the longer you wait to add it to your wallet, there's a big opportunity cost. So if we look at 35,000 points, and then divide 35,000 by 5, that gives us $7,000 of spend in order to get 35,000 Amex points rather than RBC points, which is a debate that we'll have in the future of which ones are really better. But I think Quentin and I would both argue that Amex points are significantly superior to RBC Avion points.
For sure.
So if we take $7,000 and you divide that now by 12. I know we're doing a lot of dividing, but stick with me here. We're now at $583. And 12, of course, is the number of months in a year. So if you're spending $583 a month on food, on beverage, coffee shops, anything related to food and drink in Canada, you are going to earn 35,000 points, not only from one welcome bonus, but from every single year. And that does not even account for the other multipliers like streaming services, 2 times on travel, 2 times on fuel. The card is amazing at what it does. And at only $158 a year, we are significantly overpowered in comparison to every other card on the market where Amex is accepted.
I agree. Another opportunity, get both. Can't go wrong with that.
Holding multiple cards. I think we're all on the mindset of holding multiple cards is a good thing, and your utilization is going to go down because you're spreading out your spending over multiple trade lines rather than focusing it all on one, which increases utilization, therefore dropping your credit score.
Yeah, for sure.
100%.
It's not a zero-sum game. I mean, when you have a card that only requires $1 of spend, there's no reason that card takes up the spending that you could put on a card like the Cobalt month in and month out.
One unorthodox card, if I could call it, for people just starting out, now that I'm thinking about it, is actually, I would encourage a lot of people to look at the Scotiabank Passport Visa Infinite card. Not because it's going to be the strongest workhorse card for you, but for a lot of people, getting into an airport lounge is something that they would never have dreamt of. And that's one of the things that drew me into the hobby in the first place. And for $120 a year, you essentially have 6 passes to airport lounges where the Visa Companion Pass can bring you. And for a lot of people, just holding that card and having those 6 passes is worth it just to even get to try out an airport lounge. So I wouldn't discount that for all of our listeners out there.
Yeah, and also on that card, from time to time, there's a first year free. And this is a little known trick, but if you add a authorized user to that card, the authorized user also gets 6 free lounge passes. And
juicy.
For no additional annual fee. So
I actually didn't know that.
So we've talked a lot about the benefits of welcome bonuses. Of course, that's the easiest way to accrue large sums in short order. But we also have day-to-day spending. And so with many of the cards in Canada and many of the ones that we've already mentioned in this call, they're often complete powerhouses when it comes to earning accelerated rates on various categories like groceries, fuel, restaurants, really your day-to-day categories. Of course, while we want to be doing spend, working towards those minimum spending requirements to earn welcome bonuses, There might be times where you're not working towards those bonuses, and these cards that have these bonus categories are a great way to organically earn points. We do have a few articles on Frugal Flyer, and we'll put them in the show notes on the best credit cards for grocery purchases and dining out in Canada. Personally, I find myself doing a lot of grocery spend. I'm often running my credit card Stripe through grocery purchases. And so I'm a big fan of the American Express Cobalt or the Scotiabank American Express Gold card. 5 times earning on that can't be beat, frankly, and it's a great way to bulk up those points balances.
A trick that I encourage a lot of people just getting into this hobby, especially with the Cobalt card and increasingly now with the Scotiabank Amex Gold card, is make all of your spending fall under groceries. And what I mean by that is we're going to go back to the gift cards. Just go to your local grocery store where they accept Amex. See where you shop at normally and see if you could pick up a gift card there. Let's say for the LCBO, if for everyone in Ontario. Petro-Canada often sells gift cards at grocery stores. So instead of limiting our 5 times on just groceries, restaurant spending, we can actually expand that purview into a lot of things that we would never have thought to earn 5 times the points for. So the next time you get to your grocery store holding your Cobalt card, I encourage you to go peruse down the gift card aisle or the gift card rack and pick up a few cards to get 5 times the points on those purchases too.
Yeah, great point, Quentin. We definitely want to try and use that 5x as much as we can, but eventually you run into situations where you forgot to top up your Petro-Canada gift card, or you don't have that specific type of gift card that you're looking to buy at the grocery store. So one thing that I think is overlooked in Canada is actually the RBC Avion Plus. Now, to unlock the value of the Avion Plus, you do need to have an RBC Avion Infinite or Platinum card. That's a little bit more of a complex topic, but the point that I'm getting at is the Avion Plus earns 3 points per dollar when you're spending at gas stations. Now, just like grocery stores, you can also buy gift cards at gas stations, but more importantly, RBC has a partnership with Petro-Canada where you can get 3 cents off per liter combined with your 3 points per dollar earned. So there's lots of different ways to make sure that you're always earning more than 1 or 1.25 points per dollar on every single purchase that you make.
Yeah, and the American Express Business Edge card is another card that has a bit more of a unique in Canada category structure. So that card earns 3 membership rewards points on office supplies and electronics, as well as rides and gas and eats and drinks.
And then the last thing that we can touch on in terms of category bonuses would be the American Express Gold Rewards card. It is a little bit more expensive than the Cobalt card, but it has a really unique category spend in that you get 2 points for every $1 on your pharmacy purchases. So if you're an unfortunate soul that has to go to the pharmacy a lot and buy lots of prescription medications, this could be something where you can maximize some of that spending. And then you also get 2 times the points on travel purchases. Now, the Cobalt card does this as well, but if you're only going to have the gold card for your pharmacy purchases, at least you'll also get 2 times the points on travel.
Absolutely. All of these examples really showcase that there's many ways to optimize, and if you're looking to earn more in a specific purchase category, there's always an opportunity when it comes to the credit cards available to you as a Canadian. There's also another great few ways to earn points. They're a little bit unconventional compared to credit card welcome bonuses and credit card spending, but some loyalty programs actually offer online shopping portals where you can click through them to a certain retailer and then receive points on your purchases. So 2 of the most popular ones are the Aeroplan eStore as well as the Air Miles Shop. Simply, you log into the Aeroplan eStore or Air Miles Shops with your member ID. You click through to the retailer, make your purchase, and you'll receive miles on those purchases. They often run promotions from time to time as well around certain holidays or back to school that can increase your earnings. It's actually a really good way to double dip. You'll still be earning on that credit card spend in making those purchases, but you'll also be receiving that bonus from the portal. One of our writers, Jeff, actually did a great article on how to maximize your miles and points by double dipping on purchases, so we'll include that in the show notes for reference. There's also another great opportunity, and I know Danny did an article on this on Frugal Flyer about credit card referrals. In Canada, the biggest powerhouse is American Express, and more specifically, the American Express Business Platinum card, as it can refer to many cards and has a massive referral bonus. Do you want to speak to that a bit, Danny?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. And quickly before I move on to referrals, if this idea of clicking through a shopping portal sounds kind of familiar but still pretty foreign, I think the majority of consumers, maybe everybody listening to this, will be more familiar with a website like Rakuten or Ebates. That's exactly what the Aeroplan eStore and the Air Miles shop is. It's instead of giving you cash back, you're trading that opportunity for cash back to earn Aeroplan points or to earn more Air Miles. So it's a tried and true business model that essentially the store gives Aeroplan or Air Miles shop a commission, and then Aeroplan and Air Miles pass that commission on to you in the way of points or Air Miles. Now, touching on referrals are pretty much exclusive to American Express Canada for Canadians. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of banks that offer anything else meaningful. I think Brim Financial might give like 1,000 points if you refer somebody to the World Elite Flying Blue card, but 1,000 points, you would need 55 referrals before you actually could redeem them for a business class flight across the Atlantic. So I don't think I've referred 50 individual people. Maybe in my 3 years of miles and points, I've referred 20 unique individuals. And amongst them, like for example, referring my wife to cards and referring what we refer to as a player two, somebody in your household that can also earn miles and points, is a fantastic way to earn extra points on top of the welcome bonus. So the number one example that I'll always give, American Express Canada usually runs a double your referral points promotion at some point during the year. I don't anymore, but I used to hold an American Express Business Platinum. Under everyday normal circumstances, that card gives 20,000 Amex points for a successful referral to another card. And there's many different cards that are under the purview that somebody can sign up for using your link. I'll defer to the article in the show notes if you want to know exactly what those are. But during the double referral points promotion, that becomes 40,000 membership rewards points. So think about spending $30,000 on your credit card to earn 40,000 points, or you could have your significant other, partner, friend sign up for a credit card and effectively get the exact same number of points. And those are on top of the welcome bonus that the other person is going to earn. So if they're in your household and you're planning on using the points together, let's say for a flight in Q Suite or to fly on ANA's The Room, all of a sudden a 120,000 point sign-up bonus now becomes 160,000 points. So that's a fantastic way that you might not even think is available that you can earn a boatload of extra points. I can't remember exactly what I quoted in my article, but it's probably something in the range of 200,000 points that I earn from referrals every year.
Hey, Danny, what about buying points? I hear that WestJet allows you to buy points for over $1 per WestJet dollar. Is that something you'd recommend?
Reed's trying to get me going here. Buying WestJet dollars is almost always a bad call. However, when we're talking about buying points, it can be a really good opportunity, but in very rare situations. So Aeroplan will often come out with the opportunity to buy points and get a 100% bonus. While that sounds fantastic, the regular purchase rate for an Aeroplan point is around 3 cents per point, give or take, and then you have to pay taxes on that as well. So if you get a 100% bonus, you're effectively buying points for about 2 cents per point, but that's what we value them at. So if you're buying 100,000 Aeroplan points for $2,000 and then redeeming those points for a flight that's worth $2,400, you're not really gaining all that much. Sure, you gained $400 in value, but you'd be way better off getting 100,000 points and spending $700 on a American Express Business Platinum annual fee, and you've effectively halved your purchase price. And generally, with the American Express Business Platinum, you can get a lot more than 100,000 points on your average sign-up, especially if you include a referral.
For sure. I think buying points in the right mindset and opportunity, and including looking at the value that it presents with the redemption, is awesome. I'm perpetually confused by WestJet, frankly. For anybody who doesn't know, WestJet dollars are sold at a rate of 2 Canadian dollars per 1 WestJet dollar. And let me remind you that WestJet dollars are pegged 1-to-1 per the Canadian dollar. And they often run discounts for cheaper WestJet dollars, but still over $1. So WestJet's value proposition in buying points normally is, I will sell you 100 loonies for $200. And frankly, that's not the opportunity that we're looking for in the world of miles and points.
And the other problem with WestJet dollars is that you can't even use them to cover the whole cost of your flight. So WestJet will come out and say, great, we've got a $85 flight that takes you from Calgary to Vancouver. And while that looks great in principle, you've got $84 of taxes and fees and $1 is the base fare. Now, that wouldn't be a problem, but WestJet says you can only use WestJet dollars towards the base fare. So this $85 flight still costs me $84 if I use the maximum amount of WestJet dollars.
I don't know if anybody else feels the same way, but WestJet lately is just a interesting airline to follow with their changes to the UltraBasic fare, which is, to be frank, quite the name. I didn't really believe it when I first read it, but that's the legitimate name. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think it's, what crazy thing did WestJet do this week? And it's coming out with a new, more restrictive fare class that I don't understand. Because essentially what you're going to do, all the people that normally buy the cheapest possible economy ticket are used to getting at least something, right? Whether they can select their own seat or they've got the option to upgrade if they want to, and they don't fly that often. So you're going to get these people that now have a terrible experience with WestJet with all of the restrictions that come with this UltraBasic fare. And the fact that they have to pay for an overhead carry-on bag. They're not following the news. They don't see that WestJet's implemented this. They don't read the terms and conditions. So you're going to get the majority of Canadians getting upset and swearing off WestJet for WestJet to make, what, an extra $20 to $40 per customer? The optics here just blow my mind.
Yep, I agree. I'm just waiting for the news story when someone brings a carry-on bag on an UltraBasic fare that either has medication in it or a laptop or expensive equipment, and the eventual fallout that a gate agent will have to be dealing with. I'm sure we'll see it on CBC or some other news within the next few months because people don't follow this stuff, frankly.
Not being automatically paired with your travel companion that is booked on the same itinerary is something that we haven't seen a lot of in Canada. I know there's a few airlines in the US that do that, and I also know that's not well received down there either. So just seems all around not a good development for WestJet. It's not going to get anyone jumping to choose them over the alternatives.
Well, and it's funny, I think WestJet announced this UltraBasic fare the exact same week that Air Canada improved their service, which is a rarity overall, but they're now offering free beer and wine, which to mere reporter. So now WestJet is not only the most restrictive airline, but also the only airline in Canada that doesn't offer free premium beverages. Like, you can't rate this stuff.
Yeah, I was on an Air Canada flight back from Vegas last week, and they're very clear about it too. When the in-flight service starts, they mention complimentary beer and wine. If you don't know about it, you will know about it as soon as you get on an Air Canada flight. And it's such a small thing that increases customer satisfaction in the increasingly dismal space that is flying on Canadian Airlines. So I thought that was a fantastic change.
Yeah, we can only hope that it's a trial for the summer, potentially something they might lock in for the longer term.
I think as long as Porter is offering it, Air Canada has to. Air Canada's already been offering free beer and wine from Toronto Billy Bishop Airport to Montreal and Ottawa to compete with Porter. And now that Porter has started to expand their network, what does Air Canada do? the most tried and true business tactic, just rip, copy, paste, implement across the whole spectrum of business. Like it's a guaranteed thing that is now happening in Canada, which is awesome because our neighbors to the south, unfortunately, don't have those same luxuries.
Another thing that Air Canada has done, and I had the pleasure of sitting on one of these planes, is retrofitting their Airbus A321 planes. And one of the biggest features that I think that every airplane should have, I don't know about you guys, but their seat back entertainment systems. So the screen that you have on the back of your seats connect to your wireless Bluetooth headphones. So you don't have to have these dangly headphones or poor quality headphones that they give you at the beginning of the flight. You can just connect your AirPods, your Beats headphones straight to the seat back to watch your videos, movies, and it was great. They had Wi-Fi. The overhead bins were large enough to fit many carry-on suitcases. I've only had a chance to sit on it once, but it was a very pleasant experience, and the seats were very comfortable and maybe placebo effect, but they felt a little bit larger. I'm not sure if that's actually correct, but it was a very welcome change on my flight from Toronto to Calgary a few months ago.
Those planes that are being retrofitted also include the A320. That's something that's going to be rolled out over the coming years. And also free Wi-Fi on those retrofitted planes, which is definitely a big deal for some people, myself included.
I think we're forgetting the most important new feature, and I can't believe no one's brought this up yet. We have exterior cameras on the tail and the belly of the airplane. Like, are you guys even av geeks? What's going on here?
I turned one on and got very sick very quickly and immediately turned it off. But on the plane to Calgary, they had to be like a 40-inch screen that's just kind of stuck to the middle of the plane where the lavatory jut out is, and it constantly broadcasted either I believe it was the tail, so I had to avoid looking at that because on takeoff and landing, if you get motion sickness, that'll throw you through a loop pretty quick.
Okay, so moving on, we had a couple questions that were submitted to our podcast question form last week. So we're going to answer those today. These questions are from Jen. So the first one is, what's the best way to organize all of your credit cards? And I'd love to hear what you guys think on this or how you guys organize your cards. For me personally, I use a Google spreadsheet. And this is something I've written a blog post about. And I actually have a link where you can download a template of my spreadsheet there. And this tracks all of the kind of details about the card that I think are relevant. So things like when you've opened it, the amount of spending required, the bonus, and other details. So it's definitely something you need to think about when you're getting into the hobby. And as you're really getting into it, maybe moving towards the intermediate level, if you're not organized, you can get overwhelmed pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm a spreadsheet guy as well. Google Docs spreadsheet. I looked at Reed's when he posted that article and it kind of blew my mind compared to what mine looks like. Mine is very simple with limited data, including, the date it was open, the card name, annual fee, spending requirement, welcome bonus, and if I've closed it and any notes. To supplement that, I also do write notes by hand. Sometimes I keep a notepad on my desk. I have a whiteboard in my office that I might make the odd note on, simply keeping track of, where I'm at on spends and when it's time to close a card in the future.
I also use Reed Spreadsheet. I'll shamelessly plug it. I downloaded that sucker as soon as I saw the article go live. But the one thing that I was doing before Reed Spreadsheet was calendar alerts. So whenever I have a statement cut, I created a calendar alert so that I get the alert first thing, 9 a.m., and I go log into that online banking profile. I see, have I spent any money on that card? How much is the payment that I need to make to completely pay it off? And then in addition to that, where my points went into what account. So that's just a nice way to keep in touch with all the cards. And if you set them to alert at 9 a.m., you generally don't have too much going on that day. So you've got a moment to quickly log in, take a look at it, and it just keeps you up to date with the cards so nothing gets forgotten.
I also use Reed Spreadsheet, shameless plug, but when I first started out in this hobby, and if you get any ads on your phone or your Instagram feed, you might get the odd ad for some apps like Max Rewards, Award Wallet. Those are primarily for American credit cards, and I'm sure we'll make an episode talking a little bit about American credit cards for Canadians down the line. But fun fact is that they actually will also connect to your Canadian credit cards, namely tracking your American Express cards very well. For the big five banks in Canada, they don't do it as well. They'll track your spending on it, but their app doesn't really understand the points and the currency. But for American Express Canada points, those apps track it well. And if you're interested, it's worth a shot trying it. But I think we can attest to Reed's spreadsheet. It is amazing.
Glad to hear that people are using it. I had a question, so just to follow up, something that's not covered by that spreadsheet. I'm curious what you guys do in terms of tracking your progress towards a minimum spend.
I don't do anything particularly exciting. My method actually probably needs some work. I will painstakingly add up every dollar on a statement. And if I'm lucky and I have a card that only has one multiplier, like the Business Platinum, when I was working on the Business Platinum most recently, I just took the number of points that were sitting in my account, divided it by 1.25, and that gave me the total amount that I had spent on the card. But that's a very unique situation. It's essentially for me just taking a look at the statements and adding up all the totals. Very unadvanced.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, frankly. This is probably the least sophisticated part of my system. At best, I'll export a time period into Excel and kind of filter through it there, especially if I've been doing some weird manufactured spending stuff. Outside of that, though, it's pretty manual, but I do tend to keep my cards organized, usually physically on my desk, in order of what needs to be spent on and what I'm working on next, and then I move them elsewhere.
For us, I'm in charge of the spending and financials for my household, so I actually still have to physically print our credit card statements and run it by the boss of the household to make sure that we actually know what we spent, who spent what, and what we have to divide by 2. So even more archaic than having just the credit cards on my desk is the actual printed statements.
Quentin's out here killing trees.
Exactly.
So Jen actually had another question that we're going to answer today, which is, once I've received all the welcome points within a month, can I close the card, or should I wait until the 11th month to close the card before the anniversary? My answer would be it's generally better to keep the card for as long as possible. Cards that you hold for longer are going to reflect better towards your credit score, and banks may frown upon you signing up for a card and very quickly canceling it. Particularly American Express is known to take a harder stance against that. But you can even actually wait until the annual fee has shown up on the statement and then cancel, and you will get the annual fee refunded as long as you do it within one statement period.
Another thing to think about when your annual fee posts and you don't want to keep the card, is there a lower annual fee card or even a fee-free card that you could downgrade your card to one, extend the length of your credit card file and improve your credit score, but also to keep the points that you have accrued still active for you to use later on.
Yep. Really good one, Quentin. Kind of building on that note, when you're first starting in this hobby, you want to make sure that you don't cancel a cashback card that you've had since you were 18 or since whenever you got your first credit card, because that will significantly impact all of your good payment history that you had will be lost if you cancel that card. So your oldest card, you never want to cancel. You want to make sure you always keep those ones open, which is either product switching down to a no annual fee or at very least a low annual fee card.
All right, so we'll stop things there, but look forward to answering more questions next time. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Miles Ahead. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. If you have any questions about the episode or anything we talked about, be sure to leave a comment on the episode page on frugalflyer.ca. And if you have a question you want us to answer on air, please submit it on frugalflyer.ca/podcast.